Governance and Priorities Committee meeting for Monday, July 13th, 2020 to order. At this moment, we'll take a silent moment of personal reflection. As a reminder, all members of council are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or a pecuniary interest as per section 133 of the Lloydminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. This meeting is for discussion and information gathering only. All decisions will occur during regular council meetings. We want to thank all our presenters at this time for their time and their presentations. Moving on to the item number 2, approval of the agenda. I'll look Councillor Torreson.
No, I was just going to say, as far as pecuniary interests go on the engineering update one, depending on the nature of the conversation, I may step out. But if anyone has any, I'll leave it at that. I might step out for that. But then if we're
just an update.
Yeah, I understand that. It's just depending on the nature of it.
I understand, Councillor. Thank you. Not seeing any others, I will move to request look for direction from council regarding the approval of this agenda. Councillor Buckingham.
Move that the agenda dated July 13th, 2020 be approved.
Thank you. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Monroe, thank you very much. Is there any discussion regarding this agenda at this time before I call for the question? Not seeing any, I'll ask you to raise your hand if you're in favor.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Opposed? Carried. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the previous meeting minutes. I'll look for council's recommendation. Thank you. Councillor Buckingham.
I move that the Governance and Priorities Committee minutes dated June 15th, 2020 be approved.
Look for a seconder. Thank you very much. Councillor Torreson, thank you. Is there any further discussion on those minutes before I call for the question? Not seeing any, please raise your hand for all in favor.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4, administration presentations. I'll look to the city manager for 4.1.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. For item 4.1, 50th Avenue, Highway 17, timing and coordination improvements contractor, sole source procurement. I'll ask James Rogers to present.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me and see me clearly?
Yes, we can, James. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. So before you is an information report associated with the 50th Avenue or Highway 17 timing and coordination improvements and the contractor sole source procurement method. So due to anticipated project efficiencies and lessons learned in 2019 and in 2020, administration is proposing to use a sole source procurement method to secure the services of a qualified prime contractor to complete the 50th Avenue or Highway 17 timing and coordination project, or project number 2013610. And the contractor to be selected would be Can Traffic Services Limited of Edmonton, Alberta. The intent of the 50th Avenue Timing and Coordination Improvements Project is to review and update the timing and coordination for the traffic signals along 50th Avenue. The improvements to the timing and coordination will be such that these traffic signals will interface with the improvements completed along 44th Street in 2019 and completed in 2020, and be operated using the Centrex Automated Traffic Management or ATM system and the adaptive module, which is the module allows us to run on a real-time adjustment basis. The scope of the 50th Avenue Timing and Coordination Improvements Program will closely mimic that of the 2019 Traffic Signal Hardware Upgrades Program. The differences to the 2020 program, because of lessons learned in 2019, include the following. Less project coordination between the contractor and the City of Lloydminster, as we have already troubleshooted a lot of the issues as part of phase 1. increased traffic cabinet controller programming adjustments, and this is through lessons learned in phase 1. Detection camera adjustment and specialized placement. It was found out that a number of the cameras on 44th Street or Highway 16 are not high enough. During spring melt or during a rain event, the large semis passing through can actually kick up mud, dirt, and other debris and block the vision of the cameras. So that is something that we learned coming through phase 1. And then lastly, establishment of new base signal timing plans at each signalized intersection of the corridor to allow for coordination and consistent time of day plans. This was not included in the original phase 1 scope of work, as we did not think it was needed. But as we learned, we needed to put all intersections that are along that corridor on the same base signal timing plan, and then the adaptive module as part of the Centrex ATM system could take over from there. Upon reviewing the final scope of work and additional support provided by CAN Traffic Services throughout 2019 and 2020, culminating in the completion of the 2019 traffic signal hardware upgrades, administration has determined that by sole source procuring CAN Traffic Services Limited to include the work along 50th Avenue corridor would provide significant project efficiencies and cost savings due to the site-specific background knowledge gathered. As mentioned above, the procuring CAN Traffic Services may come with two major advantages as follows: project delivery time and cost savings. Because the Centrex ATM system, software, and other needed communication hardware has already been purchased by the City of Lloydminster for the 44th Street project or phase 1, the scope of work for CAN Traffic Services would be limited to the installation of hardware within the cabinets, provide troubleshooting assistance, and prepare base signal timing plans for 50th Avenue. The software and hardware purchased in 2019 for phase 1 of the program can handle the expanded system on 50th Avenue, and this would be limited to our communication hardware and software that we have on our City of Lloydminster servers. We will have to procure cameras, detection cameras, controllers, and other hardware to actually go in the cabinets along 50th Avenue. With that, I will turn it back over to Mayor and Council for any questions or discussion they may have.
Thank you, James, for that presentation. Questions or comments from Council? Councillor Diachuk.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. I guess as I'm looking at this, really as we moved into working with Centrac, it would seem almost that we're kind of locked into them to complete the entire city. Otherwise, we'll have a little bit of one model, another model, and we could have kind of a hodgepodge of software and hardware. Any one of those companies decides to do an upgrade, you might be stuck without parts of it working. Would that be accurate, James?
Thank you for your question. So, Administration and Engineering Services, we did discuss putting the entire system on the Centrex or adaptive module and operating our traffic signals that way. But there is a number of traffic signals throughout the city that do not need to be coordinated or don't necessarily need to be coordinated with other traffic signals around them. For example, the intersection just outside my window at 62nd Avenue and 52nd Street. That does not need to be coordinated as it is located far enough away from the current main corridors. And those would be 50th Avenue or Highway 17 and 44th Street and Highway 16. So we are going to have our main corridors operated by Centrex, but the rest of the intersections throughout the city will operate as they currently are, which allows us to really test drive Centrex and the adaptive module to see how it works. And then is there need to expand it to the other intersections? Is there other software programs that can still provide us some of that communication ability, but not necessarily going the full-blown coordination? So I hope that answers your question with respect to the other intersections throughout town.
I see you shaking your head, Councillor Diachuk. Any other questions? Oh, okay, Councillor Fagnan.
Good afternoon, James. I'm just curious, were you, with CAN Traffic, did you find that they were competent in their installations last year? And one of the reasons I asked is just, I think when I take a look at a camera being too low, I would think that would be, was it Can Traffic that put that camera up, or was that camera already there?
So your first question regarding Can Traffic's ability and their level of expertise in the traffic industry or traffic control industry, they are one of the best. They have completed numerous contracts for the city of Lloydminster. We've never had issue with the services they've provided, as well as they are one of two, I believe, contractors on our yearly maintenance program. So at this time, we have no concerns with what they can do. Now, with respect to your second question and the height of the detection cameras, that was something that we had told the contractor, Can Traffic, to leave them where they were, as we did try to salvage as many cameras as possible. And the adjustment of the cameras came through discussions with other municipalities, both here in Canada and as well as the United States, where this system is quite widespread used. So this was just kind of a lesson learned thing through other cities that are using this specific type of detection camera that we are now using, that requires a high level of detail to see the oncoming traffic or the oncoming platoons. So it wasn't they should have known better. It was just a lesson learned that we had picked up along the way.
Okay, because so on with that the Econolite system, that's Centrac, and Econolite is the manufacturer. That's the only place that you can get them, and you're buying that direct from them.
Yes, we are correct.
Okay. Yeah, it's just when we put somebody in, my only concern is just the whole tendering process as well. I mean, if there is going to be some savings, and you feel that that another provider could not do the job in the time that these guys could, then obviously there's some savings there. But certainly, with the sole purchase there, it is it takes away that competitive feel. That's my only concern. But thanks, James.
So further to that, we have since received a quotation from Can Traffic to complete the services, as we will be looking to bring this forward next week, provided the comments here. But early indications are that the pricing is coming back quite in favor of the city of Lloydminster and the program. So
perfect. Thanks, Sir James. I appreciate your answers.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Worship. I understand where James is coming from, and I'm sure that it's complicated. It's always been complicated for many, many years. And I was just wondering if you feel the right thing to do is to have a designated company looking after that portion or a portion on a regular basis of the signal system, however big that is. I don't have a handle on that, and it doesn't matter. But sometimes what people do is they get a annual force account rate ahead of time and find out what they're going to charge you per unit cost to do this or that, or how much an hour for this, how much for travel. So you don't have to go to tender every time necessarily. And then you can get a good idea where you're going to be sitting financially. And I've seen it work in other industries. When you look for this kind of a ongoing maintenance and service contract. So you may think about that, and I'm sure you know about that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. I think, James, you can, leading from Councillor Baker's comment, I'll come with a question. Currently, we have a service agreement with, get the right name here, with Can Traffic today to do our maintenance, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So
excuse me, Your Worship. Are the rates included in that agreement?
I would have to check with our operations group or our transportation group just to see what rates they have in that agreement. But I would also have to confirm whether that agreement allows the extension into construction, or is it simply to do maintenance work?
Well, I'll let
I
you
just
deal
got
with
it.
that, but
Go
it's
ahead.
something to give a benchmark when you start. You know, you just don't get, all of a sudden you get a great big bill, way more than you expect. And if it's $50 an hour or $200 an hour or $400 an hour, you know what you're going to pay ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying. So thank you.
I did just get a note from engineering services that the other contractor on our maintenance agreement is TB Traffic.
TB Traffic. Okay, thank you, James. Any other questions or comments? James, I guess the question that dates back to the work done in 2019, I know it's taken some time with COVID and everything else. Are we 100% in sync now on Highway 44 or on 44th Street, Highway 16? Has everything made the transition to the new system that was implemented?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I'm very pleased to be able to tell Mayor and Council that the system along 44th Street or Highway 16 is fully operational. We are working out, of course, those odd little tweaks with respect to how often does it optimize itself, you know, and other little things within the program. But that system is completely operational. It is working in real time, making its own adjustments. And early indications are that we have shaved almost 2 minutes off of east-west travel times if you were traveling through the city of Lloydminster. So very positive. I definitely cannot take all the, I can't ask for the success on my own because my team, IT, Can Traffic, Econolite, they all stepped up to the plate and really brought that one forward. So.
Great, that's good to hear. Thank you. Any other questions for James on this item? Well, I believe we can look forward to seeing it next week at council then, James. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Looking at the agenda, I see through the city manager back to James, 4.2. We'll move on to the engineering report.
So moving on, next item is engineering's 2020 Q2 capital infrastructure project update. So the topic is to provide the committee with engineering's 2020 Q2 capital infrastructure projects update. With that, I will jump to the report itself and just draw attention to a few key points. So in 2019, we had a very successful year, completing a very large chunk of our programs, our capital programs, with some minor work being carried over into 2020. Of note, we have two programs that you can see in the at a glance chart for 2019 carry forward. Those being drainage channel improvements, East Lake K, and the drainage improvements for 75th Avenue. Those two engineering services is continually working on those to get those caught up to the other 2019 programs. But we are facing some challenges that we are working through in order to do that. So we are looking to complete both of those in their entirety in 2020 as well. One pertains to a ATCO gas pipeline that posed conflicts with our line or our storm sewer installation. And the other one pertains to Husky Energy pipelines within our work zone and just the requirements of working around those active and abandoned pipelines. But we are continuing to work through those to get them completed. Moving on into 2020, engineering services has either tendered, secured a consultant, a contractor, or the necessary services to complete the programs. And we are simply working through the project deliverables to fulfill that requirement in 2020. You'll see we have estimated construction percent completed to date at 0%. And we are typically basing those off of billed or invoiced work. And we are just coming up to our first progress periods. So when we come back for Q3, we will see quite a jump in those. Early on in the season, we were held back or delayed slightly on some of our capital programs due to COVID-19 and the unsureness of what that is going to have impact-wise for construction. Will we be able to proceed? How will we be able to proceed? And really what impact that had on our programs. So that hindered us a little bit off the start, as well as the recent precipitation that we seem to not be able to get away from. It's good for farmers, but it's not good for road construction. So we just, we need the weather to smarten up so that we can start getting these programs back on track. We are working with our consultants and our contractors to come up with ideas, and implement strategies on how to make up that time so that we can get these programs completed in 2020. And first and foremost, reduce the impact on residences and businesses near our projects. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mayor and Council for any questions, comments, or discussion on any of our 2020 or 2019 projects.
Thank you, James. Councilor Torreson.
Thanks, James. Just on the drainage channel, the first one you have up there, one of the things I noted is just that, it's kind of the opposite in that there is a lot of expenditure that's happened so far versus construction. I'm just curious whether there's an expectation that one gets completed on budget or not. If it's 40.
Thank you for your question. Just so that I'm speaking about the correct one, 1813618.
Yeah.
Yes. So that one, we initiated the construction. Very good question. We initiated the construction in 2019 for the fall of 2019 into 2020, and the contractor had purchased all of the material associated with that program. We started the construction. The material was delivered to site. And so we thought it fair to the city of Lloydminster and the contractor to pay for or cover some of the costs associated with that material. So we have material sitting on site that we've purchased. We just haven't installed it. So that's why it has not adjusted the estimated construction completed to date. Okay. We are not expecting that one to be over budget. We're expecting it to be right where we had tendered it or the approved budget.
Okay, thank you. And the other one I got a question on from some residents was the Sanitary main, I think it is, that's on 40th Street this year.
Yep.
And I know in your notes here somewhere it kind of says that it's going to be started on July 20th. Is that still the expectation to get started on that on July 20th? And their concern was that that they might not have pavement before the snow comes.
Thank you for that. Yes, the Sanitary main replacement is along 47th Avenue as well as 40th Street. We are doing 2 blocks. We are tentatively scheduled to start July 20th, but of course we are weather depending. The concern is very real. Will we see pavement this year, and will we see pavement in the snow? That goes back to an earlier comment where we are working with our consultants and our contractors to make sure that does not happen. First and foremost, we want to get the programs completed, but there's no point completing them if the quality of the work we are going to do is not up to snuff or not what we're looking for. So we will be looking to get these programs completed before the snow. And if we do get there for one reason or another, it's construction, it happens. We will come up with an alternative solution to keep that road going or operational while providing a product or a level of service that the residents require or deserve.
Okay, and just one other question on that one in particular that I got was, is there a reason why, because like the mail out said that they would be starting construction, let's say, right after May long weekend maybe, and it would go until the end of October, but we're at July 20th now. I'm just curious, is it COVID related or weather related for that particular project, why it's not started yet?
So that one, yes, the original or the initial public notices or impending construction notices that went out would have prepared the residents for a early or mid-May construction timeline. Now, of course, COVID-19 and the impact it had did slow us down on the tendering and the award of that project. So, of course, that had a bit of an issue. And then the contractor that was successful on winning that bid also has our water and sewer main replacement program. And they are looking to get that one, the underground servicing completed on that before we get into another program to ensure we aren't spreading our services too thin.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments for James? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. James, I just have a question. You said that we prepaid for a bunch of material for a certain project, and the material is sitting on job site. And I just wondered if that's prudent, or should it be in a bonded warehouse or a bonded compound? Not that we have any concerns with our contractors. I don't even know who's doing the work, and that's good. But material has disappeared on many projects across the country over the years. And if you've paid for it and it's not protected by bonding and or in your compound, is that a problem?
Thank you for your comment, Councillor Baker. Yes, that is becoming an increasing problem. However, given the nature of the material that we've purchased and the place that we have stored it, we have moved it to a City of Lloydminster owned subdivision and have put it out of the way to protect it, so it's not just sitting on the side of the road at the construction site. As well as the material that we have purchased is the large concrete box culverts. The ones that we are putting in at 40th Avenue measure approximately 2.4 meters wide by 1.8 meters tall. So if they go missing, I'm pretty sure we would find the sedan on the road somewhere, as the sedan would fit in the box.
I guess I didn't know if they're foo-foo valves or what they were, but I don't think they'll put it in their hip pocket. Just a question, but it's just a good thing to consider with certain purchases.
We have purchased other materials, or we had excess material that we have purchased, and our standard practice would be to store it here at the operations center in the locked compound so that we do not run into those issues.
Well, I'm sure you did. I just had to bring it up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question, Councillor Baker. James, one of the items that I've sort of kept an eye on this list was the river intake dam. And according to project report, all permits have been obtained. So we are going to be able to be on schedule. That'll likely come back to council for approval of a contractor, I imagine, in August, with construction in September to meet the requirements and still keep that project moving forward.
Absolutely. I believe we are actually scheduled to bring it forward to council on July 20th.
Oh, okay.
For award. We have received all of our permits. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans, they did not require a permit as it was deemed a low impact assessment. So that one has been reviewed and approved. So we are good to go on the regulatory side. Now we are just seeing where prices come back with the bid closing, and that is closing tomorrow. So we are patiently waiting to see where this shakes out in this economy.
Terrific. James, I know this isn't on the report, but it's definitely been in the community, and everybody drives across it at least once a day. You're likely driving across it a couple times a day getting to the op center, the intersection of 44th and 62nd and College Drive. Can you give council just a brief update that we can share with the community? I know that we've put in an application for funding from NEEP in the government of Saskatchewan. How is the engineering work coming along for that intersection?
Fantastic question, and I knew it was coming. So the moment after we were approved on that program through council, a request for a proposal for an engineering consultant, a design consultant, was issued. We are looking to close that bid or request for proposals on July 30th, at which time we will engage the services of a consultant to complete the detailed design and assessment. and then get into project phasing, project timelines, and exactly what is the best course to get that intersection rehabilitated and back up to a serviceable condition. The issue we're facing at this time is we need to complete the underground installation first, and then we can build the concrete blocks on top of it. So we do have some play with respect to when do we do the underground, i.e. temporary measures for surface works, and then when can we feasibly start constructing concrete block roadway.
Thank you very much, James. I think that's the important part. I know people are just can't figure out why the city hasn't went and fixed that intersection, but we are planning on fixing it. And it is just not simply laying new pavement. The concrete idea is the best engineered solution, but underneath, we always have to remember under every roadway, there's water, sewer, and different utilities that we have to ensure are looked after before we put down concrete, because I don't think anybody wants to go in that intersection for 25 years, we hope, or longer. So I appreciate the update, and hopefully the public will hear the message and say that it is being worked on. It's I appreciate the work that the roads transportation team's been doing just to try and smooth it out between rainstorms, and we've certainly had our share of those, as you've mentioned, and caused a lot of work over, but we're trying to be reasonable in the cost factor while getting to the permanent solution. So I appreciate your guys' work. Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I might be getting us a little bit off topic, but this is more of a general question for an engineer. Does a high water table make a difference in the development of potholes? Because it seems like I understood that there's a higher water table this year, and it does seem like the potholes seem to be developing quicker and more aggressively this year than in past years. Is there any truth to that statement?
Personal response on this one, as fellow engineers might be phoning me and emailing me fairly quickly after this, but I will put my name out there for it. I would say that yes, the high water table has a direct impact on pothole generation, pothole creation, and pothole expansion. The climate that we have and the higher water table, those conditions, just every freeze thaw cycle we have, just fluff that road up or break it apart, and then when it thaws, it has to settle back down. And where does it settle back down? We've noticed in the last couple freezing cycles or through the winter that we've had more and more freeze thaw cycles. In the past, we used to have one freeze and then one thaw. Now it seems, every couple of weeks we have that pretty warm days coming through the winter, which would thaw the road to a certain level. And then, of course, that just continually flexes the asphalt that we have and the base underneath. So it's an issue that is definitely growing with the more moisture we have, and the moisture continually increases along with our freeze thaw cycles. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh, thanks, James. I appreciate that. And, I had kind of heard something like that, not to the detail that you just described it, but, I think it's important for us to try and put some messaging out there to residents that we do understand that it does seem like potholes this year seem to be expanding, quicker, and there's more of them, and there's some science behind it. Although proving that precisely might be a challenge, because there will be varying opinions on the topic potentially, but it's great hearing from you.
A good indication is if you drive any of the streets within City of Lloydminster or other municipalities, if you see that white flaky material or white substance on the asphalt surface, that is groundwater coming through the gravel layer, through the asphalt, and actually bubbling up on the surface. So that's indicative of a very high water table and just saturated conditions, where we know in the engineering world, water is a problem unless you want to drink it. So.
All right, thanks, James.
Any other questions for James on the second quarter capital infrastructure project update? Thank you very much, James. Appreciate the update, and I'll continue to look out my window and hope for some sunshine so we can keep the construction team working.
Thank you very much, afternoon.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4.3, Transload Feasibility Study. I'll look to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present 4.3 Transload Feasibility Study, I'll ask Catlin from Economic Development to present.
Oh, we got to get your mic on, Catlin. 1 second. There we are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Welcome, Catlin.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of the committee. Today's topic is the Transload Feasibility Study. I'm here to inform the committee on the procurement of the Transload Feasibility Study, a budgeted capital project. Lloydminster is a regional nexus for highway, rail, and air transportation routes and is home to many of the region's businesses. The City of Lloydminster will work with regional and project partners to identify the availability and cost of suitable industrial land in the region. Available land will be assessed and detailed capital and operating estimates will be developed to evaluate the financial feasibility of a transload facility in the Lloydminster region. Based on these findings, recommendations for regional priorities to improve logistics services will be made once the business plan is complete. It will be distributed to target logistic companies, investors, CP for potential partnership. And just so everyone knows, a transload facility or transloading refers to the transfer of goods or commodities from one transportation mode to another. Just for information. The background on this piece, the city is uniquely located, as everyone knows, on the provincial border of Alberta and Saskatchewan. Its unique location between Edmonton and Saskatoon is often touted as one of the community's best assets. Additionally, the city is located on the intersection of the Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway 16 and is served by both CN Rail and CP Rail. Serving as a regional hub, the City of Lloydminster is exploring ways it can enhance supply chain networks for the region and Western Canada. The City of Lloydminster has a strong ties to oil and gas sector as well as the agricultural sector. So part of the Economic Development Strategic Plan and its goals and objectives included generating development through land and available assets and encouraging business investment across key sectors. As such, the city has determined that a strategic move at this time would be to commission a transload feasibility study. The city issued a bid document to acquire services of an experienced consultant to complete 2 phases. Phase 1, the actual feasibility study, and phase 2, the business plan that we would circulate to potential investors. On May 15th, we did the request for a proposal, and the package was issued through the city's bids and tenders website. So we went through the evaluation criteria and weighting was identified. So in this piece, experience was 30%, key staff qualifications was 10, methodology was 20, and the financial summary was 40. The scores were summarized. And as such, the administration is awarding the project to DTCI due to having the highest overall score through the RFP submission. The reference process, DTCI displayed a high level of expertise and experience. The Transload feasibility study will identify if any of the current land inventory in Lloydminster, as well as the surrounding area, is utilized as a transload or intermodal facility. The purpose of this study is to establish the business case for a transload intermodal park, which will lead to identification of key class 1 rail operator partner and the development of a business plan to attract investment. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Catlin. Councillor Buckingham, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Catlin. Just a curiosity thing. I'm not sure that I've ever seen an asterisk behind the name of one of our potential contractors. I'm just curious as to why it was starred. I realize that their score is low, but I just never seen a star behind one.
Oh yeah, so I just, if you look at their score, they were not scored against the price because their technical score didn't meet what our requirement was to be scored against the dollar value. That's why that's there.
Okay, now I was just curious on that. And the second question, if I might follow up, Your Worship.
Certainly.
We talk about Lloydminster and area. How big of an area are we looking at around the city for potential partnerships and everything? We haven't laid out anything that showed we're going this far.
So when we say Lloydminster area, we're talking about the communities, the RMs, and the counties that share our boundaries.
Okay, Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just, I noted that there was some grant funding available. Have we already secured the grant funding?
Yeah, so $40,000 has been secured through the CARES funding program.
Awesome. Well, great work to the team working on that, because it's always nice to get some provincial money going behind these things. So thank you.
Councillor Diachuk.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I'm pretty excited about certainly this study, and we talk about economic development and trying to find ways to renew and kickstart and looking for catalysts, if you like, to get Lloydminster moving again. I believe we've talked informally a lot about the fact that we have all of this sort of all of these different transport services sort of converging right here in Lloydminster and the potential advantage. And I think it's timely, and I think, you know, the possibilities are what I'm looking forward to see coming out of this report relative to development, employment, and jobs for people in the Lloydminster area. We're wonderfully located. All the pieces look wonderful, and I guess the question is sort of what other industries or marketplaces would see us as a place that would want to invest and build in our area. And again, I'm really looking forward to seeing the results of the study. Thanks, Cameron.
Any other questions or comments? I wanted to echo what Councillor Diachuk said. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can draw to our area directly from neighboring areas. Certainly, there's a distance between Edmonton and Saskatoon, and there's intermodal transport. There's a lot of bulk transport. And having visited other communities in different meetings and heard about, somebody came up with an idea, and the line ends in Oyen, Alberta, but they now have a transload facility there. So it's interesting how advantages can end up happening, even though you're at the dead end of the line in that case. But I think it's important, foremost, as another location where Transload has played an interesting piece. And I think that it'll be interesting to see how our industry responds to it, both commercial and industrial, and the agricultural piece. And I'm really hoping this brings it all together and lays out an excellent plan to move forward in the future. Last call for Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I wanted to echo some of what's been said as far as I just think that it's a great idea to go down this path. We've got so many of the elements that make it seem like it could be a real possibility, and I think it's important for our community that we keep pushing forward and trying to develop different markets within our local economy that could potentially create more opportunities for people in Lloydminster. So that's what it's all about as far as economic development in terms of growth and expansion of new business lines. And I think going down this path will get us to somewhere where we're not already. And it just provides a little more security as far as jobs go. So we're not a one-trick pony only in oil and gas, but we can continue to develop different markets and create opportunities for different businesses. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call. Thank you very much, Catlin, for that report. We'll look forward to a finished report. Is there a timeline that's likely that you can shoot for?
Yep. So we're going to kick off the end of July, beginning of August, and we should have our final report by the end of December. So we're really excited about that.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 4.4, I'll look to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. For 4.4, report to the community, I'm going to ask Leo from Communications to present.
Good to be on you today.
Good afternoon, Leo.
Hello, Your Worship and Council. Pleased today to be sharing with you the 2019 report to the community. So as Council is aware, each spring administration compiles this report. Our managers and city departments all come together each year. They take a good review of the activities and accomplishments of the year past. They ship them off to the communications department, and we compile them into a nice visually compelling publication for the use of our council and the viewing pleasure of our residents. So I did want to have a bit of a footnote on this year's edition. While we had everything in place to have the much earlier in the year, when COVID struck, we reallocated some of our communication resources onto kind of higher priority items, I guess you would say. So the report's coming out a little bit later than usual, but happy to be sharing it with you today. Also wanted to mention that this document serves as a bit of a time capsule, or it has in the past, that we can, I guess we called it a journal or a yearbook, a city Lloydminster yearbook that allows us to go back in future years and kind of see what we accomplished during any given year. This year's edition is about 30 pages and includes updates on all kind of the key areas of the service that we provide as the City of Lloydminster, including governance, finance, assessment, taxation. I won't go through the whole list, it's there for you, but all city departments and service areas are covered within that. Our intention, once council has approved the document or accepted the document as information, would be to have a limited number of print copies available at City Hall that people can access, that residents can come and access by request, as well as some copies of the document will be provided to council for use in their travels and conversations with the public. We found in more recent years that more and more residents are accessing this document online in a digital copy rather than print copies. So the digital version will be available at lloydminster.ca/community reports. Happy to take any questions council may have on this.
Thank you, Leo. I'll look to council for questions or comments. Councilor Diachuk.
Thanks, Your Worship. Not so much a question, but I think one of the pieces that you really nailed in this one that I really liked is that the focus on community and people in the community. Anybody opening up this document is going to see people doing things. It really portrays our city as a busy place where there's lots of recreation, arts, it's scenic, lots to do. I know in the past that one of the reports probably 4 years ago had a picture of oil, gas, and maybe a bit of ag on every second page. This talks to about city and people and the vitality of the city, and I'm really pleased with the product. It's aesthetically pleasing. The numbers are there. The information's good. And I mean, on as recent as yesterday, someone on Facebook said, "I'm moving to Lloyd, and where can I find information?" And this document would be an incredible resource for anybody that's looking to move to the city and to see the wonderful kind of things that are available to the residents in the city. So thanks for that. I'm proud of this document. I think it's really it does a lot of wonderful things. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor.
Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, one of the things I wanted to maybe add to that is, there's people out there that are like me who every year want to get a good look at the financial statements to see what went on in the city. But the majority of people are not crazy people like me, but they want to see what happened. And I think this document does a really great job of showing people, okay, what's going on in their city, where are their tax dollars going, what's really happening behind the scenes. And this is a really visual, simplistic way to get to people, to let them know, okay, these are all the services provided in the city. These are a lot of the things going on, and this is what's getting done. And I think that it's a useful tool to be able to communicate what's going on within the city of Lloydminster and what's going on within the city of Lloydminster as an organization. So I think it's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. I think it's worth mentioning as well, while this is a very collaborative document, like I mentioned, just about every department in the city plays a role in putting this together. I think it's probably worth a little special recognition to our community and our communications coordinator, Eric Healy, who had the massive task of compiling all this information and polishing it up into this document that you see today. So,
Councillor Buckingham.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Leo, for that, and your team for putting it together. You know, the best laid out reports are only as good as the hands you put them in. So I, for one, certainly like to have a copy of these, and we've been given them in the past to take around when we're going. But I just wanted, and I know you're already doing this, I just wanted to say it out loud that, you know, the more of these we can put in people's hands, the better. Whether we put them on all of our social channels and everything else, and the all the pages with a link once it's up on our website. And I'd really like to see us promote this to everybody in the community we can, so people have that gauge. And like Councillor Torreson was saying, it's a really good snapshot. Councillor Diachik said it's aesthetically pleasing. It's all of those things, but it's only as good as the people that see it, right? So I'd like to make sure we're doing everything we can to put it in as many hands or in front of as many eyes as humanly possible, because it does answer a lot of questions and does add a lot of clarity to things that the city is doing year over year. So just my 2 cents. Thanks to everybody for their commitment on this. It looks great.
Certainly a social strategy will follow. So thanks, Councillor.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you, Leo. I think it does bring together, you know, 2019 seems so long ago after the last couple of months, but I appreciate it getting here. And as you mentioned, COVID has certainly challenged us on all the fronts of the city, including your own team at communications. So I'm glad it's ready, and as it's been expressed by the other councillors, I think every possible angle that we can get it out into the community and get people looking for it on our website as well as social channels would be a great benefit, because I know there's less and less hard copies walking out the door, but people do have their devices and various methodologies of looking at things. So I'm sure they'll be following that up. So we'll look forward to seeing it hit the newsstands soon, as they say.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Leo. Moving on to item number 5, governance and priority matters on the agenda, and it's to 5.1. I'll look to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. For 5.1 draft code of conduct bylaw, I'll ask Chelsea from Ledge Services to present.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council.
Good afternoon, Chelsea.
Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. I'm here to present the draft code of conduct bylaw. The code of conduct bylaw and policy are up for review as part of the governance document schedule. Administration has determined the need to combine both governance documents into one easily referenced document. The code of conduct bylaw now outlines all details regarding the code of conduct for members of council. No major changes to the bylaw have been made. Changes to the bylaw included formatting and housekeeping changes, along with the additions from the policy that were missing. Making these changes will assist with clarity and quick reference for both administration and members of council. Our objective is to present the committee with the draft code of conduct bylaw for feedback. Our alignment with the strategic plan. This item is alignment with open and responsive government, ensuring that members of council are aware of their expected conduct, and ensuring an up-to-date document will assist in the process when issues may arise. Our governance implications, this new bylaw, the code of conduct bylaw, and the policy will be repealed along with the old outdated bylaw. And I will open it up for questions or comments.
Thank you, Chelsea. Is there any questions or comments from council? Councillor Baker.
Worship, just a general statement, if I may.
You may.
Certainly the two codes go together, in my opinion, the next two discussions. But I would recommend that you really be careful that you don't get it so restrictive, some of these things in policy, that council's afraid to operate. And there's different things in there, and I'm not going to get into detail today, but it might even scare people off. And I don't know where we come up with some of these draft bylaws, whether we pirate them from other municipalities or borrow them or whatever we do. But they get longer and longer and longer. And they get to a point when nobody knows what's in them. and then they get cold feet and they're not sure exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And I think you got to keep them somewhat simplified, because at the end of the day, you're going to have members of council or potential members of council saying, holy smokes, how am I going to deal with all that? So I just caution you about the length of these bylaws. And it says that we have a judge that might look into these things, whether it be the city clerk or who. And it's kind of a situation that I don't think is good for new council members. So I think you should have a really good look at how strong you want to make this. I take for granted that the people I sit with on council, and for the most part, I've always sat on council with, are good, honest, qualified people, and they do their best to do the right things. But we just got to be careful with some of these policies because we're getting overrun by them. That's just my opinion, Your Worship. So be careful.
Thank you for your comment, Councillor Baker. Just in response to that, all of the information that's included within the bylaw actually has been pulled from the acts or the charter. So the bylaw itself, we have kept fairly simple, 3 pages, but the attachment, the Schedule B, where it lists the code of conduct, seems quite extensive, but the reason we've put everything in there is because if we keep it too high level, what will happen is we'll have members of council and administration being required to reference the act rather than just one simple document within the bylaw. So that's just some further clarity as to why all that information is in there. We are required to abide by all of that as per provincial legislation. So we've just included it within our bylaw to make it an easily referenced document.
Just to follow up with the Mayor, Worship.
Certainly, Councillor Baker.
It's fine for the provincial government to lay down all these rules. But 7 people have to run our city. And there's some elasticity in the legislation. I know the charter fairly well. I wouldn't say I know it well any longer. But the charter's there for a reason. But I'm just saying, be careful how many rules we're making, because people aren't going to be able to move when they're in city council. And if the charter puts us in that position, then maybe we should be talking to the Minister of Government Relations and or Minister of Municipal Affairs and finding out why they're so stringent and why they're trying to muzzle councils the way they are across the country. Because I've seen this grow over the last 20 years immensely. It's just more restrictions on city councils, more restrictions on the mayor, and it just goes on and on and on. Yet we're intended to take on more responsibility, make things happen, yet we got more rules. And somehow that doesn't sit with my being. So I'll leave you with that to study along with council. And if you study it hard enough, you might figure out what I'm talking about sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Your point's well taken, Councillor. I think that the challenge we have is you've experienced it for over 20 years. It flows downhill, and our uphill battle is an uphill battle. But I appreciate it. Your comments, having now just about served our full 4-year term. I've had the pleasure of working with a great group of people. And I can share with you in my experiences as mayor, I've had more than a number of calls from other mayors dealing with issues that this bylaw deals with in their own councils. And I'm, like I say, I feel so fortunate that we've had a great council to work with. Other mayors and councils have not been as effective. And I think that's one of the challenges that the province has heard. And good governance I really think we can stand on that ground as the group that we are today with the work we've done in this community, working with administration and the information put forward. But there's a lot of communities and municipalities in general that feel challenged by that. And I think that without, and it's that happy medium. And I know, Councilor Baker, you're saying that there's things have continued to change, and I agree. They may have changed a little too much, but in some cases change was required. It wasn't that long ago this council brought through a governance review to make sure that we were in that, to make sure that we were on the right track. The community was on the right track from the governance perspective of our city. And I guess it's that waiting of that, ensuring that those rules are in place, because like I say, I've had my share of calls from fellow mayors asking, well, how would I handle this? And I go, well, first, I'm very blessed not to have your problem, but have the opportunity to offer up some advice and challenges. But having that legislation at their hands as council, should it be required, is a very important step, and it's going to lead into that next discussion around procedure, because I know that that is an issue in many communities that I've chatted with. Their procedure bylaws haven't kept track of today, and it's, you know, again, when you're fortunate, we don't have those challenges. It's simply the rules. But if everybody stays within the rules and stays within the lines, we have no issues and things move forward. But that's one of the challenges, I think, that's being prepared for keeping our bylaws in place so that they're current is a very important step. But I truly appreciate what you've said, and I'm going to spend a little more time going through this. I've went through it a bit, but I'll be taking another hard look at it, Councilor Baker. I appreciate the thoughts.
I just don't want to see you go too far one way and then go too far the other way, Your Worship.
Absolutely.
You got to find some middle ground.
Absolutely, Councilor. Councilor Diachuk.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, I would, I recognize the fact that we're kind of getting more legalese and more rules and regulations, and they tend to stem from people abusing the goodwill. And there are a lot of examples, Nortel and others, that all of a sudden accounting has taken on a whole new kind of look in terms of what accepted practices are, and that's just a reality. I wanted to make one comment, however, is that one of the challenges certainly in wanting to run or encouraging people to run in municipal governance is that many people may have a business and feel that their business would suffer if they were to somehow come on council. And I think what this bylaw does say is that, you know what, you can run for council and you can do business with the city, and there are rules around which you can do it. So it lays it out so that it protects the councillor, it also protects the city in here. And it also provides the opportunity for people that do have a business that can run and they can function and they can do things. And then they're protected in many ways by this bylaw. So people aren't going to say, geez, like, look at the guy, he's a councillor and now it's his business, he's doing business with the city, and how's that look? Well, there are rules and regulations, and they're posted in this bylaw so that people can continue to do it. But there are particular steps that need to be followed. And I appreciate that, because I certainly want to encourage as many people to consider looking at, being part of this municipal governance. It's a learning experience, and it shouldn't be restrictive and punitive in any way anybody considering to run it. And I think this provides protection on both ends. So I appreciate that fact.
Councilor Torreson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just, from our experience in traveling to conferences, AUMA, SUMA, if ever you have the opportunity to go to one of these or hear some of the people speak about councils behaving badly, you absolutely need to have some form of a code of conduct bylaw to be able to have a set of teeth to be able to manage yourself as a municipality. If you don't, then you're relying on the province to step in and make decisions for you and do things for you. And a lot of the times they don't want to do that. So we need to have a code of conduct bylaw so that we can have the parameters in which people are allowed to operate and the ability to do something about it if someone was doing the wrong thing, rather than having to go to the province and try and get them to step in, because a lot of the times they won't necessarily do it, or it won't be the timing in which is considered acceptable to your community. So that's one part of why it's important to have one. From my perspective, though, as the individual on council who has declared more pecuniary interests than anyone in the record of pecuniary interests, it's really important for someone who could potentially have even the optics of having a conflict of interest to ensure that the rules are relatively black and white. So it's clear what someone can do, what they cannot do, what can be said, what part of a conversation you can be in and not be in. That it's super clear to the public that I'm not putting the city of Lloydminster at risk as appearing as though they're doing something unethical. I'm not putting Jonathan Corson at risk as doing something that appears unethical, and I'm not putting my employer at risk as doing something unethical. I think it's incredibly important that you have parameters around which people can operate. There's still a level of gray area, and I hear that all the time from administration when I've declared on items that, you know, maybe is black and white, but I still feel like it's gray, where I should be able to sit in the room and at least talk about information when you're not assigning dollar values. But for me, there's still a level of uncomfortableness with that. But having a code of conduct bylaw like this is important in terms of drawing the hard parameters of what you can and cannot do. That's all. Thank you.
Your worship, just to close, if I may.
I had Councillor Buckingham first, and if you'd like to comment at the end, Councillor Baker, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Buckingham.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would echo what Councillor Torreson said. I think that anybody who is uncomfortable with having those positions shouldn't be in them, right? I think we've done a very good job of erring on the side of caution. I've declared quite a few times myself, and sometimes I thought, man, it's kind of a stretch to declare for this, but I'm not taking any chance. I would prefer that everybody on council thought that way, and I think we've been lucky. If you look back a week or two ago, the Saskatchewan municipalities put out a link to the provincial ombudsman's report, and there was a lot of councils in a lot of trouble in our province, and I'm glad that we're never in that position. So this is the kind of bylaw that takes care of that kind of thing, because if it gets to the provincial level, to me, it's that they didn't have a bylaw in place that they could deal with it locally. So it was somewhat discouraging to read that provincial report about all the things that I thought were seemingly simple that got these councils and people in hot water. So there is a checks and balance system provincially, but it is nice to be able to handle it locally. I just had one question for you, Chelsea. Was there a change under 12.2.1 from the other bylaw around gifts and benefits? I've never come close to coming into anything remotely like this at all, but I thought that number was possibly different than before.
12 point, what was it, sorry?
12.2.1.
No, I don't believe so. The only thing that was really adjusted within the code attachment was that whatever was written within the policy, I simply just drug over and put into the schedule.
I see where Councillor Buckingham's going. I think the number should be 150.
Yeah, because that number seemed off to me.
Yeah, I see the city clerk wants to comment.
I think we'll take a look at that. I think it is 150 is what it's supposed to be. I believe that's a typo.
Okay.
And comment that there's sort of two pieces to a conduct bylaw or a conduct piece is pecuniary interest piece, which is legislated in the charter, and then the rest of the items like such as the gift provision and those type of things. And if those complaints were received, it is still council who is the final arbiter of those decisions. Anything legislated potentially could go outside to a court or a judge or a court of competence jurisdiction, but anything within the lesser type of things like a violation of in-camera confidence or the gift policy, things like that, council would have the final arbitration. That it wouldn't be a reason for a disqualification of a councillor. There's going to be certain reasons for that. So this sort of amplifies what our policies are and provides council with some guidance when they're moving forward.
Thank you, City Clerk.
Yeah, I'm pleased to have this because it's like Councillor Diachuk said it. It's as much a protection for us as it is for anything else, right? And I'm fully in support of this 100% with that potential small typo change.
Just to speak in regards to that, I just pulled up the old bylaw, and it actually was $750.
Okay. I think somewhere, City Clerk.
That may be, and I'd have to confirm it. I think the policy for administration accepting gifts in council, there might be a changeover, but we'll have to see what that is and confirm it. And we'll make sure when it comes back to council, they're harmonized.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think we're getting off track here. Just hang on a minute, Your Worship. I lost my earplug.
No problem.
Councillor Jonathan's talking about conflict of interest. Well, that's the simplest, in my opinion, the simplest thing that we have to deal with. When you're in doubt, get out. And if you still don't know, ask the city clerk and he'll tell you. That's all you need to know about that one. That isn't what it's all about. You got a box of good apples, but you always got a few bad apples in there. And one of them is the $750. We have a policy from the past that was something like a box of chocolates is almost too much. And I'm saying where we're picking this stuff up, I don't know. But now I know. But I'm just saying some of the things need correction. But at the end of the day, you can cherry pick every one of those things. Most of them are good. And they really haven't changed. But some of the way that some of it's worded, it's very legalistic. And it's sometimes very hard to pick it up and really know what you're supposed to be doing or not. Maybe you haven't been there yet where you've had that frustration, but I've witnessed it. That's all I'm saying. So everybody have a really good look at that and make sure what you're asking for is what you want. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Baker. Any other comments? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Chelsea. But as I see from the agenda, I believe through the city manager, back to you for 5.2 regarding the draft procedure bylaw. Please carry on, Chelsea.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm here to provide the committee with the draft procedure bylaw. The procedure bylaw is the foundational governance document for members of council. Administration has completed a full review of the bylaw and has made the necessary changes to ensure ease of reference and clarity for members of the public, council, and administration. The item is in alignment with the following strategic area: open and responsive government. Providing an up-to-date procedure bylaw is very important to ensure decisions are made in accordance with the applicable regulations and ensures that the public can reference the document and obtain the information in a quick and easily understandable manner. This bylaw will repeal Bylaw 14-2017, the procedure bylaw. And just over to the PowerPoint. The procedure bylaw is the foundational governance document. Our proposed changes, removal of organizational meetings section. I want to specify that this is the removal of the section itself, not necessarily the meetings, rather than having a specific meeting just for organizational purposes. Council will hold that in December of each year. Removal of consent agendas, removal of proclamations and flag raising, reorganization of sections for clarity, and housekeeping and formatting amendments. As I mentioned, organizational items include meeting schedules, deputy mayor schedule, committee report, committee appointments, and Robert's Rules of Order. Rather than holding a separate meeting, this will be included in a regular council meeting, usually in December of each year. Removal of consent agendas. Consent agendas were historically used to accept multiple information items at once. Since the implementation of governance and priorities committee meetings for information sharing purposes, there is no longer a need for consent agendas. The removal of proclamations and flag raising. This process is now included within the recognition from members of council policy. Reorganization of sections, housekeeping, and formatting. Administration split out in camera into its own section to assist with clarity and quick reference for in-camera meetings. Moved additions to the agenda section into the agenda section. Point of order and point of privilege has now been included into its own section rather than sort of scattered about throughout the bylaw. Removed meetings to be public. Exceptions and meeting expectations are now included within the meeting type section, regular council meeting or in camera. Meeting types, requirements, guidelines, rules, and expectations have been broken out into their own sections for clarity when referencing. And just simple adjustments to numbering and alignment to ensure consistency with all of our templates. Governance and Priorities Committee. The governance audit completed relayed the need for incorporating Governance and Priorities Committee meetings. Administration made the necessary adjustments to incorporate the new governance model. The first GPC meeting was held on May 15th, 2017. And I will hand it over to you. My first question would be, does council still see value in holding GPC meetings on a regular basis? Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. I'll look to council. This is probably their input, and I'll close that answer off at that point. Any comments from council regarding the question of GPC meetings? Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I think they're really important, the GPC meetings. I understand why we would consider moving away from them in one sense, but you know, that may be because, you know, as a council, 4 years into this, we have a great deal of background knowledge into the various subjects and what's going on within the city. However, I don't know that the public gets the same opportunity to know and understand to the level of depth that you can get from a GPC meeting as to what is going on. I just think that there's, generally speaking, creates more opportunity for more information that can go back to the public so they understand what's going on in the city. And at the end of the day, that's what the meeting's all about. It's all about getting that next level of information that otherwise the onlooking public wouldn't necessarily see. They might just see a request for decision, and you might not have the depth that that would be required to understand what's going on. Not to mention, generally speaking, although the media cycle is a little bit thrown off right now, but in the past it's given it multiple opportunities for people to know what's going on prior to a decision being made. Then they have the opportunity to contact their counselor and let them know how they feel about it, or ask them any questions prior to a decision being made on something. So for those reasons, I think that it's, you know, important to keep them around. I also think with the amount of time that they have taken in the past, I see that as being something that, you know, as the council gets more and more experience, it maybe takes less time to get through the information, but it's still important to have the information out there for the public to know and understand what's happening in the city. So on that basis, I don't see why you would get rid of GPC meetings. The other thing I was going to say is that, you know, there's an election in the fall, and depending on what the results of that are, you may have 7 new individuals who need that next level information that they otherwise would not be getting from not sitting here for the last 4 years. So that's how I feel about it. Overall, I like some of the changes to the procedure bylaw. One of the ones that I really like that I think is special to our municipality, I'm sure no one else necessarily has this, is asking for a recorded vote after the fact. It's always such an awkward thing when, you know, you might think that you have presented a really good argument and that everyone potentially is on your side, and then you find out after the voting happens that you didn't persuade anyone to vote any particular way, and you maybe really wanted a recorded vote on that, but you didn't know until after the fact. So having the opportunity to have a vote for a recorded vote, I think is a good thing to do, and I think it's a clever way to add that in there. But otherwise, most of the other things kind of seemed pretty straightforward and more getting closer to some of the things the way we do them already. And yeah, I think it's good. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Chelsea, for the presentation. I strongly feel that the success of this council has been based on having those GPC meetings and changing the way things have been given and things have come forward versus previous history. I think you have to always look, like Councillor Torreson said, like there's going to be 7 new people sitting in this chair November 10th. And I think that I, for one, took great value in the information and how it was done, but also I took value in the principle of why it was done. And I firmly believe that it needs to stay there for the way things are going. I think you open yourself up to too many issues, and that's, I think, basically what a lot of this council ran on, was being more transparent and being more open and having more opportunities. And that GPC meeting provides not only that in the time or the meeting, but time in between and time coming up to it and time after it. And I've seen that work in the best interest of the city's taxpayers over and over and over again, in my opinion. I think it's a cornerstone piece. If you're looking back on what worked really well for this council in the last 4 years, I think that's a cornerstone piece of it, and I would like to see it carry on.
Councillor Diachuk.
Thanks, Your Worship. I would echo those comments, and I think, you know, when one of the key benefits for me in doing the GPC is that there isn't as high stakes a discussion around it. There isn't going to be a motion to go forward or to approve and go on at the end of the discussion. And I think what it does do is allow for a broader ranging discussion to explore, to be open to listen, to be open to looking at new ideas. And I think when we look at the recommendations that come out of the options from the GPC, one of them is that we request more information. You know, and that for me is that it's a pretty simple and easy piece that, you know, we can do through this process. We could probably do the same thing through a regular meeting. But I think what this allows us to do is that we become a little more efficient in our regular meetings and really have that opportunity to debate more, to explore more, and have time to consider all of the other pieces that we may have learned from our councillors or that input I think that I heard both councillors talk about. Other people reach out to us and say, hey, you know what, there's another piece here. Why haven't you thought of that? We certainly don't have the monopoly on all the knowledge that's out there. And it gives us that time to be able to review, reflect, think about, ask for more information so that we really have as much information and the best information we have going into that final meeting when we're expected to take a vote to either approve or not approve a particular motion. So I like it. I always feel that some of our best discussions occur during these GPC meetings. And I think it's been a worthy move on the part of the city to have this.
Councillor, any other comments from Councillor Monroe?
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say that everyone else hasn't already said. Just that I am very much in favor of the GPC meetings. I think that more than anything, not only providing transparency for our community, but the efficiency that it provides for administration and for our council as a whole is one of the greatest things about it. Is that, you know, we're not at a council meeting, oh, can you guys come back with more information, and we're delaying the process by another 2 weeks. So for me, that's one of the biggest positive things for it, as well as obviously having the time to reflect on conversation. I know myself personally, I've come into the meeting numerous times with a different point of view, and the following week, once I've had a little bit more information and had time to reflect on it, heard from more members of the community, that my decision was altered by having that little bit more of information. So for me, I definitely see it as a positive, and moving forward, I can't see why any new councillors who may be in these positions or any returning councillors wouldn't see it as an efficiency as well as providing that transparency for the rest of the community.
Thank you. Councillor Fagnan.
Well, just agreeing with everybody else, and I think that efficiency piece is very important, and Stephanie touched on that, Councillor Monroe, in regards to if we do have further questions, it is not coming back. We don't have to wait an additional 2 weeks or longer to get that information, and whoever the client is, our citizen, are able to move along much more quickly and just being overall efficient. So for myself, the GPC has been phenomenal. I love it, and I certainly would not like to see that discontinued. And I think that you know, any further councils would also benefit from it and see the value. So we've been very fortunate to have this all the way through our term.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Councillor. Councillor Baker, did you want to weigh in on this one?
Well, it's good. It's always been there. It's been committee of a whole. Now we call it the GPC. The only difference is we got the media, our own media, to get it out to the public, where we really didn't have that in the past. But there's always been committee of the whole meetings, and it pretty well operates the same way as GPC, like I say, with the exception of getting it out to the public. We didn't have the same ability to do that as we do now. But it's a great thing, absolutely, because you know what's going on and you get feedback from administration. You got time to do your research for the next council meeting, and you know, to get a package on Sunday or Saturday, and you look at it, you get it Friday night, and you got to deal with it Monday. Isn't that good? Where this gives you 2 weeks, sometimes a week and a half. I don't know, but it does give you time to do your homework. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I think everything's been said. Councillor Monroe.
Just one further comment. I think that I know the 7 of us that are around the table currently, I'm sure we can all recall those first couple council meetings when we were here till 10:30 at night. And there is something to say that when you're in a meeting for that long amount of time, having discussion and having debate, that, you know, your efficiency personally as well, I mean, your brain starts to peter out, and maybe the decisions you're making at that late at night or throughout the course aren't as efficient either, right? And maybe aren't always in not necessarily the best interest of the city, but just maybe not with the most clarity. So I think that keeping the meetings to a shorter period of time as well has been something that the GPC has enabled, because I feel as if the GPC meetings weren't in existence, that, you know, our council meetings would still be in that duration to 8 or 9 o'clock at night, because this council has been very adamant on making sure that they are have the best amount of knowledge, and that all the information that they have is required before making a decision. So, you know, it really is in the best interest of administration and council's clarity as well, having the GPC meetings in place. So.
Thank you, Councillor. That was my exact point. I think it's been beneficial for both council and administration. This way, things like today, as we've discussed through drafts, have an opportunity to be flushed out and cleared up in case he didn't make that, not show it to a council meeting and then send it back and be a month behind again, or a series of time. And I certainly support the GPC meetings to the fullest to ensure that as much information is made public as soon as possible and shared with the public, because this is a second avenue outside our regular council meetings and getting those reports, and as well being efficient. And I think it's been an efficient use of our time. It's been a growing time for all of us over the last 4 years, and appreciate where we've got to this point in the process. So I think, Chelsea, I think that was a pretty clear answer for you on that perspective. You would go back with.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments for Chelsea? Not seeing any, I will move on to inquiries from the media. Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you, Your Worship. And today we have an interview request for yourself, Mayor Gerald Albers.
All right. Thank you very much. With that, I will look for recess. Motion to recess. Councillor Diachuk, seconded by Councillor Buckingham. All in favor?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone.